Welcome to Michael's Sleep Well channel, the podcast where we listen, we relax, and we get sleepy. My name's Schofield, and it's my pleasure to be your host. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. I hope you're feeling comfy and peaceful, but don't worry if you're not quite there yet. Just relax in bed and listen along to my voice for as long as you'd like. There's no hurry whatsoever. Once upon a time, in a quiet village tucked between green hills and golden fields, there lived a boy named Elian. He was a gentle boy with curious eyes and a heart that always listened, even when no one else did. Elian wasn't like the other children. While they played in the fields or splashed in the river, Elian would often wander into the edge of the forest that grew beside the village. The grown-ups warned him, "The woods are full of strange things. Stay close to home." But Elian was drawn to the trees, not by danger, but by whispers. You see, Elian had a gift. When the wind rustled through the trees, he didn't just hear leaves brushing together. He heard voices. Quiet, melodic, ancient voices. The trees spoke to him in a language made of sighs and songs, and Elian, though he didn't fully understand them yet, listened with all his heart. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in pink and amber, Elian stood beneath a tall willow near the forest's edge. He placed his hand gently on its trunk. "What are you trying to say?" he whispered. To his surprise, the tree shivered. And then he heard it. "The forest needs you, child of the quiet heart." Elian's eyes widened. It was the first time the forest had spoken clearly, as if its voice had found a way to reach him fully. The willow continued. "Follow the silver path under moonlight. A great sleep has fallen. You must help us wake what was lost." Elian stood still, the cool evening breeze brushing his cheeks. He didn't know what the forest meant, but something inside him knew he had to follow. That night, while the village slept, Elian packed a satchel with bread, a small lantern, and the old flute his grandfather had given him. Then, with the moon rising full and round, he stepped into the forest. The forest at night was unlike anything Elian had seen. Silver light spilled through the trees, casting long shadows and bathing the leaves in a soft, glowing hue. It was neither dark nor frightening. It felt like stepping into a dream. He searched for the silver path the willow had mentioned, and soon he saw it, a trail of glowing moss barely visible unless you looked closely. It shimmered faintly, winding between roots and under branches, leading deeper into the woods. As Elian walked, the forest whispered around him. Not words this time, but songs, low and rhythmic, like a lullaby sung by ancient trees. Birds with feathers like starlight watched from above, and tiny lights, perhaps fireflies, perhaps something more magical, floated alongside him. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. In the forest, time felt strange. Eventually, Elian reached a clearing with a small, crystal-clear pond. In the center of the pond stood a tree like none he had ever seen, tall and silver, with leaves that shimmered like glass. Suddenly, the wind changed. A figure appeared beside the tree. It looked like a girl, no older than Elian, but her skin glowed like moonlight and her eyes were deep pools of silver. "Welcome, Elian," she said, her voice soft as rain. "You've heard us, haven't you? You're the one we've been waiting for." Elian nodded slowly. "Who are you?" "I am Lyra," she said, "one of the tree keepers. Long ago we watched over the forest's heart, but now it sleeps. A deep, unnatural slumber has taken hold. If we don't wake it soon, the forest will forget how to dream. Elian looked around. The trees swayed gently, but he sensed their sorrow. "What must I do?" he asked. Lyra smiled. "You must find the heart of the forest, but beware, for it lies beyond the misty veil, guarded by shadows that feed on silence." And with a shimmer, Lyra vanished, leaving Elian alone with the silver tree. Elian followed the path once more, guided now by his heart rather than his eyes. The air grew cooler, and mist began to curl around his feet, thick and white like spilled milk. This was the misty veil. He could barely see his own hands as he walked. Shapes flickered in the fog, shadows without form, whispers that didn't come from trees. Then he heard it, a low humming sound, like a tune played on a hollow bone. It grew louder with every step. "Elian." The voice wasn't kind like the willows or musical like Lyra's. It was dry, cracked, and ancient. A shadow slipped from the mist, forming a shape like a tall, thin man cloaked in leaves. His eyes were pits of dark fog. "You walk where none should tread," it rasped. "I seek the forest's heart," Elian said bravely. The shadow tilted its head. "Then you must give me something. All who pass must lose a memory." Elian blinked. "A memory?" "Yes, a song, a dream, a name. Give one to the fog or turn back." Elian thought for a moment. Then he pulled out his flute. "This song," he said softly, "it belonged to my grandfather. I give it now to the mist." He played one last tune, gentle and slow. As the notes faded, so did the shadow. The mist parted, revealing a mossy bridge. Elian had given away a song, but he had gained passage. Beyond the mist lay a grove bathed in golden twilight, though the sky above remained night. Trees here were massive, their trunks wider than houses, their branches reaching like arms to the stars. In the center of the grove stood a stone circle, carved with ancient runes. In its heart lay a hollow, and within the hollow, a glowing orb pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. The heart of the forest. Elian stepped closer, but before he could touch it, the ground trembled. From the roots of the trees, figures rose, guardians made of bark and vines, their eyes glowing green. "You must answer," one said in a voice like thunder. "Why should the forest wake?" Elian looked at them, then at the sleeping heart. "Because the forest is not meant to sleep. It's meant to sing and grow and whisper to those who listen. I heard it, and I followed. I give all I have so it may wake again." He stepped forward, his hand reaching out. The orb flickered once, then twice, then shone like a second sun. A wave of warmth spread from it, washing over the grove, over the mist, over the trees. The guardians stepped back. "Elian," the forest whispered, "child of the quiet heart, you have done well." Elian awoke in a soft bed of moss. Birds chirped overhead, and sunlight streamed through the canopy. The forest was no longer whispering, it was singing. The silver path had vanished, but in its place was a trail of blooming flowers. Lyra appeared once more, this time with a smile that warmed Elian's heart. "The forest thanks you," she said. "You gave it your courage, your song, your heart. She handed him a small pouch of leaves. "These will guide you home, and wherever you go, the trees will remember you." Elian nodded. He felt the song of the forest still inside him, like a second heartbeat. As he walked back to the village, the trees swayed in rhythm, and though they no longer whispered, Elian knew. They were alive, awake, and grateful. And he, the boy who listened, would always be welcome in the whispering forest. Elian followed the trail of blooming flowers until the edge of the forest came into view. The village was just beyond the hill, smoke curling softly from chimneys, roosters calling the morning awake. But everything felt different now. The birdsong was clearer, the wind warmer. Even the dirt road beneath his feet seemed more alive, as though it remembered his steps. The leaves in the small pouch lyra had given him rustled softly, whispering words only Elian could hear. As he reached the village gate, old Mac, the baker, spotted him. "Elian, you've been gone since last night. Your mother was worried sick." Elian smiled. "I'm all right. I just went for a walk." Mac shook his head with a half laugh. "A walk into the woods? You always were a strange one." But as Elian passed through the village, something shifted. Flowers bloomed where his feet had touched. Birds followed him through the air, and people began to notice. Even those who had once scolded him for being different now watched with wonder. Something had changed in Elian, and somehow they knew it too. That night, Elian slept deeply for the first time in days, but even in sleep, the forest called to him. He dreamed of a giant tree at the center of the world. Its roots stretched through the oceans, its branches touched the stars, and nestled in its heart was a glowing orb, just like the one he had awakened. The tree spoke in his dream, not in words, but in feelings. "There are more like us," it said. "More hearts, more forests, more dreams." When Elian awoke, the leaves in the pouch glowed faintly. The forest hadn't just thanked him, it had given him a purpose. In the days that followed, Elian began to understand the forest's gift. The leaves guided him not only through the woods, but through dreams and thoughts. He could sense when a tree was sick, when animals were afraid, even when the wind carried sadness. One afternoon, he sat by the river when a gust of wind tugged at his hair. It carried a whisper, not from the whispering forest, but from somewhere far beyond. South flames, forgotten woods. Elian frowned. Could other forests be in danger? Could the same slumber that once fell on his forest be spreading? That night he played his grandfather's flute again, though the tune was no longer the same. It was richer now, filled with ancient notes he'd never known he could play. As he played, the trees outside his window leaned closer. He had been chosen not only to save one forest, but to listen to them all. Elian packed his satchel again. This time, he took dried fruits, a fresh cloak, a map, and the pouch of leaves. He told his mother he was leaving, not to run away, but to help. She didn't understand, not fully, but she hugged him tightly and gave him a locket with his name inside. "You've always walked your own path," she said. "Just make sure it leads you back home someday." Elian set off toward the south, where the wind had warned him. The forest behind him hummed softly, as if watching, waiting, supporting him. He was no longer just a boy who listened to trees. He was their messenger. Days passed, then weeks. Elian crossed fields, hills, and rivers, following whispers in the wind. Finally, he came upon a forest unlike his own. It was quiet, but not the good kind of quiet. The trees were blackened, their branches brittle. Ash covered the ground. He had found the forest the wind spoke of, the burned hollow. As he stepped inside, the leaves in his pouch quivered. A faint warmth pulsed from them. Elian kneeled and pressed his hand to a scorched root. "You're not lost," he whispered. "You're only hurt." To his surprise, a flicker of green appeared at the root's edge. A leaf, tiny, trembling, but alive. He pulled out his flute and played, letting the song carry through the burned trees. And slowly, one by one, tiny shoots began to rise. Even in ruin, life listened. Beyond the burned hollow lay another forest, but this one was strange in a new way. The forest of echoes. Here, every sound repeated endlessly. A bird's chirp echoed 10 times. Footsteps repeated long after the walker had stopped. Elian's voice returned to him like 100 ghosts. Elian, Elian, Elian. He tried to focus, but the echoes became overwhelming. They weren't just sounds, they were memories. His fears, his doubts, the voices of villagers who had called him odd or foolish. He covered his ears. Stop. Then he remembered something Lyra had said. Shadows feed on silence. This forest was testing him, not with fear, but with noise, with doubt. Elian sat quietly and breathed. He didn't run, he didn't fight. And soon the echoes faded. The forest accepted his calm and let him pass. In the center of the forest of echoes stood a strange tree, its bark covered in hundreds of glowing eyes. When Elian approached, the eyes blinked. One spoke. "You walk between worlds. You see clearly." Elian nodded, clearer than I did before. The eyes blinked again. "Then you may receive a gift." The bark split open, revealing a crystal seed, small and shining. Elian took it gently. "Plant this where the world forgets to dream," said the tree. Elian tucked it beside the pouch of leaves. He didn't yet know where that would be, but he would find it. Far across the lands, Elian found a place where no songs were sung. A glade surrounded by lifeless trees. No birds, no whispers, just silence. It felt empty. He knew this was the place. He knelt in the center of the glade and planted the crystal seed. At first, nothing happened. Then a light burst from the earth, and vines began to twist upward. A tree grew before his eyes, taller, greener, brighter than any he'd seen. And then a single whisper. "Thank you." The glade was no longer forgotten. Years passed. Elian wandered from land to land, healing forests, listening to winds, planting seeds. People began to call him the Green Walker, the Forest Whisperer, the boy who spoke to trees. But he never forgot where it began. One morning, he returned to his village. The whispering forest was waiting, its branches swaying gently. The trees had grown taller. The silver path glowed again, and the willow, his old friend, greeted him with a rustle of joy. "You have returned," Elian smiled. I always promised I would. That night, Elian stood in the center of the forest. Children gathered around him, wide-eyed and curious. Tell us a story, they asked. Elian pulled out his flute and began to play. The song was slow, soothing, filled with the stories of all the forest he had saved. The trees swayed, fireflies danced, stars sparkled through the canopy. And as the children drifted off to sleep beneath the branches, Elian whispered, "Listen closely, little ones. The world speaks softly. All you have to do is listen." And the forest, no longer whispering, sang with him.